wife alikuwa kwa kitanda ya kwanza ya ICU yenye ningeona nikiwa kwa mlango nikipita nikiingia kwa hiyo room. So ukiingia kwanza ulikuwa unamuona. But kuingia tu hivyo niliona curtains. I knew it was not business as usual. I knew she was gone. Maybe they wanted to talk to me first. But sikuwa nataka kuongeleshwa. Literally nilikuwa naona dunia ikizunguka. Nilikuwa nakula na maji. Like hadi mchele singetafuna. Nilikuwa naweka kwa mdomo na nini? Na meza.
Tuko family, my name is Kingori Wangeshi, and on this episode of Tuko Talks, I'm in the esteemed company of Jackson Njuguna. And he describes himself as a father's heart on two wheels. That is why he is on this bicycle. He's pursuing a cause to raise awareness on a particular issue in the society. What is it? We are just about to find out on the other end in the studio. But for now, let Jackson take off. Let me remind myself, the good old days. That feels nice.
Well, thanks for having me here.
You're welcome.
Yeah, my name's Jackson Njuguna, a single dad of 2 boys, now for 2 years.
Wow. We are here today to raise awareness on something.
Yeah.
Yes. What is it?
Yeah, I'm here to talk about raising awareness about dads being present in their kids' lives. Just like I am present in my kids' lives, my 2 boys' lives. Yeah.
And we are happy to hear that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But we'll get to understand why you are in that situation of a single dad, how you ended up there.
Yeah.
But long before that, what do you do?
I'm in construction industry. I do decorative concrete moldings.
Yes. And
plastering itself. Yeah.
We'll see some of your works as we go along this conversation.
All right.
What happened that you are a single dad? Let's begin there.
Well, I became a single dad in the year 2024 after losing my wife.
Okay.
Through a sickness. Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
By losing is she passed on, right?
She passed on. Yeah, she passed on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
So now we go from the beginning.
Yeah.
How did you meet your wife?
Well, we were both in NYS, National Service. That's where we met.
Okay.
She was doing secretariat, I was doing accounting, CPA.
Yes.
So that's where we met. We became friends. And along the way, as we were still studying, I got her pregnant.
During the training?
No. We were done with the training. Now we had gotten to the part where we are in the school.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happens is that when a lady gets pregnant while in the service, she is expelled. But the person who is responsible is not expelled.
Is not expelled.
Yeah.
And there was a story like that one recently with the police service, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So you remained in the camp?
Yeah, I remained in the camp. Yeah, she went home, but then she came back and told me, well, I think I'm leaving the service. And the parents didn't take it nicely. So she came back and told me, you have to know what we are going to do. So I also now had to step out of the service.
You left the service as
well?
Yeah,
I left the service. Yeah, and we started our lives somewhere around Mwiki.
Now as a husband and wife?
Yeah, as a husband and wife, with my pregnant wife. And that's where it started. And that's how my firstborn came about. Yeah.
How was that few days or months as husband and wife? Both of you have left the service. How did your parents take it, by the way?
I kept it away from them. I didn't let them know that I'm an expecting dad. So they didn't know at that time.
So what happened on the day that people trooped to Naivasha for graduation of NYS?
Well, now we had already gone through that before, because now we are already
now in school.
In school, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't tell yours, but hers, they didn't
knew.
also take it kindly.
Yeah, they knew. Yeah. So we lived a very good life. No sustainable income, but we had a very good life. We didn't really care much about having a good life, but we just wanted to stick together. So when it was time for her to give birth, now I had now to tell her to talk to the parents, because I myself, I knew I wouldn't be able to take care of a newborn child, or a lady who is about to give birth. And they agreed, and she went. And that's how we lost contact with her.
How? There were mobile phones, weren't there?
It was taken away. I wasn't able to contact her until far much later, when the baby had already come. Yeah.
About how many months later?
It was around 4 months. Yeah.
So she went to her parents' home?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and she didn't have a phone. I don't know what happened. But after some time, she called me. Actually, it's a nurse who called me. I woke up one day and found like 8 missed calls at night. Sorry, I was sleeping, so I didn't hear them. So in the morning, I tried calling. I called, and then she told me, a lady wanted to talk to you, and she has a baby boy. And that's how I knew. Yeah, I asked where? Around Voi. So I knew, well, I have a boy, yeah.
Yes. And when did you now reunite with her?
Well, along the way, we planned. And I went to Voi, and she came with a baby. She didn't have the phone still. I don't know whose phone she was using. So we met in Voi town. We had some time, we had a talk. I saw the boy.
How did you feel when you first saw him?
I don't know. We were like lookalikes. We were like twins with the boy. Like the boy was actually very happy to see me. She knew the dad. Yeah. No, he knew the dad was here now. Yeah. So we had a talk, and she told me, now you're going to have to wait, because I don't have a phone, but I can come any day. Yeah. So around that time, I think they had a discussion with the family. Don't get me wrong, we are in very good terms with the in-laws. But now I'm talking about back then, yeah?
Yes.
So she told me, I think I'll be going back to school, and I'll be leaving my kid at home, but that's not my intention. I want to come back, we can continue with our lives. Now, by then I had now started doing the construction thing. So I was getting a sustainable income. I could afford rent, meal. So I was ready for her. So I had to wait again for a few weeks, like 3 weeks. And she called me and told me I'll be coming, and I don't have a phone. So what you have to do is wait for me at the bus station. I think it was a Simba coach. Yeah, so I had to go there and wait until I'll see her, because no communication. And that's how they came. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
And you began, no, it's not beginning, you re-began your life together.
Yeah.
How was it? How did it feel? Now you're a dad, you're a father, you're a husband.
It was amazing. Naturally, I feel I'm a family man. So me having a family, now my kid and my wife around, it was the best thing. And I'm that kind of a person who, when I go to work, in the evening, after work, no stopovers, direct to my family, to my boys. And it was amazing. The whole thing was amazing.
That was back in 20...
That was 2019. Yeah.
So when did the second born come?
Well, the second born came 2020. He came about, and now I was a father of 2. And now that's when my in-laws confirmed that now these guys are serious. All along we didn't really have good relationship. But when we had now the second kid, the second boy, now they knew, well, these guys, we have to
allow them
to live together now and call them a family. And that's when I was able to have a proper contact with my in-laws. Yeah.
And your people went to her people came to your people, or how did it go?
Well, I took her to our place in Nyeri, Narumoro actually, before the second born. And now my dad by then had now known that I'm not in school, and he didn't take it kindly.
Yeah, now it is your turn.
Yeah. Now I just called. I wanted to show respect. I'm calling my dad. I'm telling him I'm coming to a place. I'm asking for permission to come home. I had stayed for more than 1 year without going home because I didn't know. My dad actually was very furious. He didn't want to talk to me. Yeah, because he was really, he really wanted me to study, and he really wanted me to be an accountant. So I had to call him and tell him, well, Dad, I'm coming home. He told me, all right, come. So I went home with my boy, very young boy, and my young wife. And I didn't get anybody home. Everybody was busy with his all own things. They didn't really wait for us. It was not a very warm welcoming, you know. So, but I knew it would turn out to be like that because the disappointments I had shown them, yeah. But now again, I had a very young, handsome boy who really captured the attention of my dad and my mom. They loved the boy so much that they forgot about the past. Yeah, the boy, he's called Ryan. He brought
the two of you, I mean your family together.
Yeah, together, yeah. And now the welcoming came about and they loved us. They embraced us and we started from there. Yeah.
And did your parents go to visit your wife's parents?
Well, we really had a lot of procrastination about my parents visiting my in-laws. But we had the plans. For a very long time, we were planning, but it was unfortunate. By the time my wife passed away, it had not happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened to your wife?
So my wife was just having her best life. And ilifika tu place, akaanza kusema kujikuna. We didn't know what was happening to her. We went to the hospital, Kiambu Hospital. We went to a lot of hospitals, private hospitals, and she was not getting any better. So ikakuwa too much, and akapata jaundice, the eyes becoming yellow, and that's when we knew something is wrong with her liver. So tukampeleka Kiambu. She got treated. We went back home. It was quite a journey. And ikafika place, she wasn't even able to walk. So she had to be admitted at Kiambu Hospital. So all that time, I was handling her alone. I didn't want to include the families because as a man, I wanted to do what a man should do for his wife. Yeah? Yani, sinaona tu ni bibi yangu, so I had to try and take care of her before I include other people.
How hard or difficult was it carrying that burden alone na kubalance pia kuna mtoto mdogo, kuna kazi pia? How are you balancing all that?
Well, I would say my wife made it a little bit easier for me. And I tend to think that she was going through a lot than she really wanted me to know. I think she was going through a lot of pain, but she didn't want me to see it. And that made me feel like maybe she'll be better. and nilikuwa naenda job, niko job but I'm not concentrating. I'm just making calls. Unaendeleaje? Niko poa. Watoto wako poa, anawapeleka shule, but well, unable to tell me your wife is not really doing well. But nikiongea naye, I think she was really a strong lady. So but sasa ilifika place nikaachana na hiyo kazi. And I now started kukopa watu. I used the savings we had, tukaenda OC, we did a lot of tests.
At that point hamkuwa mnajua shida iko wapi?
Yeah, tulikuwa tunajua. Yeah, but kuna time tulienda OC, akaambiwa akona typhoid. She was treated for the same. Well, I think, I don't know, there was a lot of incompetence anyways, but I don't do blame game, so it was meant to be. So until I think venye tulienda Kiambu, she got admitted, and she was not being treated for anything specifically. So that's when now I saw now she's becoming worse and worse. I decided to contact my family and her family. And it's very unfortunate that my family and her family got to meet in such a situation instead of meeting at home when we are all healthy and happy. So that was their first meeting at the hospital. Yeah.
And at that point you're not working, ulikuwa na kopa tu?
Yeah, I wasn't working. I had to take care of my boys and her, and I decided that watoto wataenda shule. So it was roughly a week. I decided nitaka na yeye, so ningepata pesa tunaenda. I think my mind wasn't even functioning properly because nikipata tu pesa kidogo nilikuwa nafikiria venye tutaenda hospitali. So we went to Kiambu Hospital. She got a scan. Then they said she need an MRI. I had to go to, they don't have an MRI at Kiambu Hospital. So ndio akarazwa, and nikaambiwa CT scan is not enough to know, but the CT scan said she had pancreatitis. But now for her for it to be determined properly, she had to go to do an MRI. Then unfortunately hiyo time ndio kulikuanga na kuna place sijui kama ni Embakasi, kulikuwa kumelipuka tanki ya mafuta. Watu wakachomeka sana. So hospitali zilikuwa, ICUs zilikuwa zimejaa. The doctors told us she needs an ICU.
Was she that critical?
She got critical within minutes. It was very fast. But now her family, her uncles were around. So they were now helping me. Yeah, but so we were told she needs an ICU and she needs MRI it was very urgent. So nikaenda KU hospital, nikaambiwa iko schedule labda after maybe 4 days. But sasa mimi sikuwa nataka kusikia days. I wanted it to be done immediately because I knew nilikuwa na feel vibaya sana ni kumuona tu amelala hapo. And nilikuwa na feel ni kama hizo siku ni mingi sana. So ndio nikaenda German Hospital niko Upper Hill. Actually nilienda na pikipiki. Nikaenda, they told me she can be brought. So that time sasa watu walikuwa wameanza come through. Nilikuwa nimewaambia I need money, sina pesa. So the uncles, by the uncles really helped me. And my family too. Now I think my mom now was on her way because nilikuwa nimwambia now mali imefika, hebu kujeni sasa. My sisters came, so nikaenda nikalipa, and nikaambiwa the Kiambu Hospital, they are going to provide the ambulance to come to bring her. And I had to wait, and I waited for quite some time, maybe an hour, 2 hours maybe. akakuja, but unfortunately haikufanyika because she was in pain, she was moving. Niliambiwa MRI ufai kumove kama unafanyiwa hiyo nini. So alikuwa akiingia, wanasema she's making movements. I even wanted to get, nilikuwa nimwambia naweza ingia naye kwa hiyo machine. I wanted to kuingia na yeye because nikimshikilia alikuwa anatulia. Lakini nikimwachilia anaanza nini, she was in pain. Unfortunately sijui alikuwa na feel aje. She didn't get to tell me. So haikufanyika.
MRI haikufanyika.
Haikufanyika. We went back to Kiambu Hospital. And that's where we now, still she needed ICU services. That's where her uncles, they decided we are going to take her to another hospital, and which was Nairobi West Hospital. We paid. Nairobi West Hospital, they provided the ambulance. They were very fast. They came for her. She got admitted. Now the whole family was there. That's where my family and her family met.
At the hospital?
At the hospital when she was in ICU. It's very unfortunate. That wasn't the plan, but it happened that way. Yeah.
How long did she stay in the hospital?
It was 4 days in the ICU. Yeah. She stayed for 4 days. Counting the days she came, it was 5 days. So I was told to sign I think people signed some stuff when a patient is taken to the ICU. So I was getting the notifications on every test. Every test she's getting, I'm sending notification. Every medication she's being given, I'm getting a notification. So since I'm not allowed to be in the ICU with her, I was depending on the messages. So when I get a message that she's going to do this test, I knew my wife is still around. When I get another test, at night I wasn't sleeping. At night we are doing this test. I knew she's still around and she's still undergoing the medication. The next day I would go, stay in the hospital with the family and my family, and we would go see her. And then kafika siku moja, ilikuwa saa 9 usiku. They called me, and I immediately venye niliona napigiwa simu, then inasoma Nairobi West Hospital, I knew something was wrong. Because I wasn't used to getting calls.
You only used to notifications.
Notifications that she's undergoing. And the last text was about MRI. So I was waiting for another notification. Yeah. That the results are out, and here she's going. And now the next
step.
The next step, yeah. But now this time, 3 a.m. in the morning, they gave me a call. They told me, "Are you Jackson? Uko wapi? Unaweza kuja hospitali."
They're calling you at 3 a.m. to go to the hospital.
Yeah. And it clicked in my mind, something is wrong. Because mi si daktari, so hakuna kitu nawasaidia, wao ndio wako in control. So why call me? So I knew. So nikauliza shida iko wapi, kanambia your wife had a cardiac arrest. And we have managed to resuscitate her. And she's not in a very good condition. We would want you to come and see her. And I just woke up and left.
Where were you staying at that time?
Githurai 45.
Okay.
Kachukua pikipiki na nikatoka nikaenda. Nikafika Githurai. Now saa hiyo ilikuwa sasa now around saa 10. And kulikuwa na gari zilikuwa zinaenda town around that time. So kufika Muthaiga mimi nikaona gari ni kama inaenda polepole sana, nikashuka nikachukua pikipiki tena nikaenda Nairobi West Hospital. And I started calling everyone kujeni tu hospitali. Nimepigiwa simu. So nikaenda nikapata nimengojwa. And they called me. Nimepata wameningoja, wakaniambia nipande juu. And wakaniambia niingie kwa karoom fulani. And the funny thing is that it's not funny anyways. Wife alikuwa kwa kitanda ya kwanza ya ICU yenye ningeona nikiwa kwa mlango nikipita nikiingia kwa hiyo room. So ukiingia kwanza ulikuwa unamuona. But kuingia tu hivyo niliona curtains. I knew it was not business as usual. I knew she was gone. So kuniambia niende kwa hiyo room. Kwambia tu hapana. Mi nipelekeni tu nione wife. Waka insist nikamwambia instead kwanza kunipeleka hapo, mi kwanza nipelekeni nione wife, then nimepeleka kwa hiyo room.
Did they agree? Did they take you?
Well, they had to tell me she's gone nikiwa nimesimama hapo. Because they had planned to me kwa hiyo room. Maybe they wanted to talk to me first. But sikuwa nataka kuongeleshwa. They had to tell me so that nikiwa before niingie. But I knew the moment I got the call, I knew. I just knew
things are not all right.
Yeah. So nikaenda nikampata. And she was gone.
So sorry.
And that's how I became a single dad.
So sorry.
It's okay.
Then your people came and you had plans to rest her?
Yeah. My people came. And the plans to rest her started. My dad came, my mom, my sisters, my mother-in-law, my dad-in-law, everyone came. So it was a very sad day.
So sorry.
Yeah.
Where did you rest her?
We rested her at my in-laws' place. That is in Voi. And my dad had already organized where we would rest her at my place because we had a normal family setup. So normally she would be rested at our place, not her place. But as my dad had even prepared a place, not the normal preparation, but we had a place. But as I had told you earlier, the most unfortunate thing about the whole meeting is that my parents and my late wife's parents met at their first time at the hospital when she is in the ICU. As a normal person, being a dad to a lady who was arrested, to a child, you have lost your child, and she is married to a person and you have not met the parents, you would take that kindly. And it was now, remember we already had 2 children. So my dad-in-law felt it took so long for the meeting to take place. We had the plans But now that was invalid now. It was invalid. Now kuambia eti tumekuwa tukipanga kukuja. And now my wife is no more. Huwezi anza kuleta hizo story. Now hiyo that's gone. Yeah. So dad-in-law akasema mimi msichana wangu atazikwa kwangu. Now dad alitikia tu because
of the circumstances.
The circumstances, yeah.
Yes.
Well, we had really become, tulikuwa yani tumekuwa in very good terms with the in-laws. And as so many things were messing with me because despite losing my wife, nilikuwa naumia sana yani kuona my mom-in-law ame-lose daughter yake. Na daughter yake alikuwa na mimi. So nilikuwa najiblame sana. Like I thought that maybe sasa wasijui wanafilaje kunihusu. Nilikuwa najiuliza maswali mingi sana. So I was thinking nini naweza fanya hiyo pain yenye specifically my mom-in-law ako nayo ipungue. Though najua haiwezi pungua lakini yani tu nimsaidie ipungue. Yeah. And well, that's where now it came to be my kids won't be, well, in either way, singekaa na watoto.
Why not?
Juu mimi nafanya mjengo, watoto ni wadogo, and 4 years, 5 years, they were watoto wadogo. So it's either wako nyumbani kwetu ama wako kwa in-laws. And mimi kwa hati yangu, nilikuwa nataka waende kwa in-laws because I didn't want to imagine my mom-in-law akiamka kitu anaona tu ni kaburi ya mtoto wake. And nothing else. And my parents wako na mimi, they have not lost me. So as much as they have lost their daughter-in-law, but my mom-in-law and dad-in-law, they have lost their daughter. So I decided that I want my kids to stay with my in-laws so that they would get that healing. Wakiona watoto, they wouldn't just wataona tu kaburi yao. Wataona watoto and she will feel good taking care of them. Juu ni watoto wa mtoto wake. And we agreed with that. And that's why they are that far away from me. Yeah.
At what point did you go through, too much thoughts to a point of being depressed?
Well, I don't know what was happening to me. Maybe someone would say I was depressed. But when everyone else is grieving, mi nilikuwa napanga watu. Nilikuwa ambia, actually immediately after she has passed away, nilikuwa na feel niko tu kwa dunia yangu. I wasn't crying or screaming or anything. Nilikuwa naambia watu venye tutafanya.
You are not grieving?
Yeah. Nilikuwa naambia watu kupanga watu instead wanipange, and that's why I really wanted to put everything the way I wanted. Until now, my dad told me, you have a problem and you have to stop doing whatever you're doing. Can you just relax and let us now take over? You tried, you did everything, you took care of her. Can you please stop with it? That happened for 2 days. I didn't want to listen to anybody. I wanted to be listened. I wanted to tell people, I want my kids to be here. I want you to take her here to the... And that's when now I started feeling sad.
That's when it hit you?
Yeah. When they told me to stop with everything and No, I'm not talking, I'm just listening and I'm there. And I'm surrounded by everybody. That's when it came to me. I wasn't able to eat, I wasn't able to do anything. Literally nilikuwa naona dunia ikizunguka. Naona venye dunia kuzunguka hivi, nilikuwa naona vitu zikizunguka hivi. Nikashindwa kukula. Nilikuwa nakula na maji. Like hadi mchele singetafuna. Nilikuwa naeka kwa mdomo na nini? Na meza. Yeah, nikiwa nimezungukwa na cousins zangu na sisters zangu wananiambia I have to eat. I could eat just a plate. Hata singemaliza for almost an hour. And yeah, they told me to leave everything with them. Na hivyo ndio tukaanza meetings za kupanga fundraising because she had a bill of around 600,000. So mimi nilikuwa tu sasa na show up. Naambiwa kuja twende, naenda. Yeah. Hata sikumbukangi, a lot of things I don't remember. Kitu tu nilikuwa nafikiria ni watoto. And I started buying toys. A lot of toys, like gari, so watu wananichangia, wananiwekea pesa kwa simu. Nilikuwa tu na buy toys juu nashangaa nitaambia watoto nini.
Were they understanding?
They didn't know.
Did they have an idea of what had transpired?
Walikuwa wanajua mama yao kwa hospitali. And kila time ni kuniuliza mama anakuja, kwani mama kuji? So nashangaa niwaambie kama anakuja ama hakuji.
Sorry.
So nawapea toys, wanacheza. Sikuwa nataka kuangalia. So natoka, nakaa nje, naenda na buy toys zingine nawaletea. Mpaka huyu mkubwa akaniuliza, hey, na hizi toys zote sasa zimekuwa mingi ni za nini? But they didn't know I was hurting. And I wanted them to be occupied na kucheza toys. Maybe wasishangae sana mama yao kwa wapi. But hawakuwa wanatambua hizo hadi hizo toys, walikuwa wataka mama yao. And at one point walianza kushangaa mbona kuna watu wengi hivyo. Na wakaniuliza mbona watu wengi shule. Na watu wengi kuna nini. But ni watoto tu. I pray along and the environment was very sad because kila mtu akiona hao watoto alikuwa na kuwa tu emotional. So it was ukiwaangalia tu kila mtu. So people came through. We were able to clear the bills. And I got myself in situations whereby it never crossed my mind that I would be there. Me actually, you see death, me I didn't know. Like, sikuwa naona kama ni real, like, it was just happening to other people. But now ilinipata kwangu, kwa nyumba. Mimi ule mtu ningeenda, unaona hii place zinauzwa caskets. Sikuwa nataka kukaribia. Nilikuwa naona hao watu wakiwa watu funny, wanauza casket.
Before like, this
before, yeah. Wanafikiria nini? Yeah.
But now it came a time that you needed their services.
I needed their services. And at that point, tukiwa kwa meeting nikawaambia, mimi ndio nataka kuchagua casket. Mimi ndio nataka kuchagua nguo yenye atavaa. Na nataka kulipa has yenye na nichague pia yenye itampeleka home. And they agreed. And now ni mimi naenda kuchagua casket. Hata sijawahi karibia nao, ni mimi naenda kuchagua casket na kushika nguo nikiangalia. Nasema hii inaweza mtoshea, hii haiwezi mtoshea. Yeah.
It was difficult, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I thought I was dreaming. Shopping. Saduku. Yeah. But all the same, I had a very supportive family. They were going everywhere with me. Yeah.
All right. So, how did you cope with the loss after that?
I had to go home. That was after the burial. I stayed at home for 2 months, doing nothing. I think I was sleeping a lot than anything else with my parents.
And they understood you?
They understood.
Yes.
They wanted me to stay at home more than that. They wanted me to be there as much as possible.
Okay.
Yeah. But then I felt I want to come back to Nairobi and have a time for myself while I'm alone. I came back and nikahama place yenye nilikuwa naishi sasa.
And which year was that then?
That was 2024.
Okay.
So nikahama, nikaenda nikarent place ingine. I had to, nilikakaa kidogo kwa hiyo nyumba. But kuona tu zile vitu tulikuwa nazo, like hata TV nikiona nakumbuka tu, nilikuwa naona anything namkumbuka yenye ilikuwa kwa hiyo nyumba. I had to dispose everything. Kila kitu. Nikabai vitu zingine and I started a life. But of course I didn't dispose everything. I was left with some stuff to remember her. Actually I was left with anaishi na huko Voi. So wanavaa dela. So I was left with one. And I wanted to make pillowcases nazo. Yeah. Nikataka kutengeneza pillowcases 3. Yangu, ya Ryan na Miles. Yeah. So I kept that. And that's how I now made, junilihama nawe nikaondokea friends wangu wote. I started making new friends, and friends wenye nilianza ku make, they were cyclists. And I started seeing how they live a lively life, and I thought maybe I should try cycling. That's how I bought my bike. With the cash I was left with, nilibuy bike, and I started cycling. Yeah.
How was that first day when you cycled? Did it reflect what you were seeing from your friends, the liveliness?
Definitely. Well, it was gradual, but I felt it. The more I cycled,
you're getting some relief.
The more I was getting relief. And I wanted to cycle like every minute. Every minute.
Even when sleeping?
Yeah. Then I was sleeping. Now instead of sleeping, now I want to cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can tell you it was the best decision I made. It really helped me. Yeah.
But yours was not just cycling for fun. Or you also wanted to raise awareness. Or how did this awareness raising come about?
Well, before then, now being separated with my boys, yani watoto nilikuwa nikitoka job napata for years, more than 5 years, more than 6 years actually. Natoka job hadi sisimami place juu najua nikifika home napata watu wao wameningoja. But now nikitoka job yani sipati mtu, sipati. It came to a point where I started kuprint hizi mapicha kubwa hizi mapicha naeka kwa nyumba. But I still felt that is not enough.
Za watoto.
Yeah. And I started making journeys to and from kwenda Voi kurudi na SGR. And I was keeping, actually nilikuwa naeka hizo tickets though I lost some. Naenda leo, nakaa, narudi. Nakaa wiki kama 2 na feel tu hapana. Naenda tena. I made a lot of to and from journeys to see my boys. And kwenda kuona watoto nikipatana nao it's very nice, but now the day inafika ni kurudi, it was the hardest part, especially for the older boy. Ilikuwa tricky sana because analia, ananiuliza narudi lini, so namdanganya nitarudi kesho ama kesho kutwa, naenda then tarudi, so hiyo inamtuliza, but then now kesho sitakuwa occupied na shule na nini. I felt the distance really messed with me, and now I felt I should I felt maybe most dads go through this just like me. Maybe their cases is a bit different with mine. Maybe they have not they have not lost their wife like me. Maybe they have.
But they're separated.
But they are separated with their boys. And if their feeling is just like what I'm feeling, maybe I should do something and tell them they should show up for their children, for their boys, for their girls, because they can if they wanted. And since I've got my bike, I decided I'm going to use my bike to prove that you can breach any distance separating you with your children if you ever wanted.
And decided to cycle from Nairobi to where?
I decided to cycle from Nairobi to Voi.
What's the distance?
350 kilometers.
On a
bicycle. It's quite a distance.
It is.
And most people thought I wasn't serious because they thought, hata kuna wenye walianza kuniambia, are you
nuts?
Are you crazy? Ni fair hauna tukuchangie? Nikamwambia hapana. That's me and the decision. I had also actually to make a video of me telling them nimeenda kuona watoto wangu for so long na SGR, and actually I even showed them the tickets, but this time around I'm going to go with my bike. And I started doing the training and made a poster about it.
We saw that one. How long did you train?
I did the training for 2 weeks. Yeah. I started going to Limuru, I went to Machakos, and I started looking for people who would cycle along with me as I go.
To keep you company.
To keep me company. Yeah. And cycling is very interesting, by the way.
How so?
cyclists usually come through for each other. Let me talk about Nairobi, area along Nairobi. Once you have a noble cause, they always come along, they engage you, and they come physically. Like if you want to go somewhere and you want company, they will come.
Did they accompany you to Voi?
Well, it was a process. So when I said I'm going, I started, first of all, I gave my cycling tour to Voi a name. And I called it A Father's Heart on Two Wheels. A father, who is me, on two wheels, representing the bicycle. And I decided that I'm going to do this to raise awareness about dads who feel like they are miles and miles away from their children and they are not able to go and see them. And I posted that in a lot of pages, a lot of groups. And I wanted to prove that distance is never an excuse for a dad who wants to
be present.
To be present for their kids.
Both physical and emotional.
Both physical and emotional.
Because you are going there physically to give the emotional support to your children.
And I knew I'm going to do this without people cheering me up, without getting any medal. But finally, when I get to see my boys,
that's the medal you're looking
That's the
for.
medal. And I can assure you I got the medal.
How long did it take?
It took me 2 days to Voi. First day I did 252 kilometers to Mtito. And nilitoka kwa nyumba saa 9 usiku. I did, it took me almost 10 hours on the bike, cycling. Nikafika Mtito jioni, nikalala. And kutoka hapo nilikuwa nimebakisha another like 100 kilometers, which nilikuwa nianze the next day, nishuke hadi Voi.
How was it when you made that journey on a bicycle and you found your two boys waiting for you?
It was the best feeling. Actually, they didn't know that I'm coming, that I was going to cycle there, whether on bike, on my bicycle, or train or anything. They didn't know that I was coming. And I can tell you, actually I recorded
the moment.
The moment.
I can't believe it. Daddy, Anna. This is the best day I ever had.
Yeah?
Daddy,
Come on a bike.
Tukaangalia watoto wako.
Nimekaa kuangalia watoto wangu. Hug me.
There's no person in my life that I like but you.
Thank you. And I met my boys praying outside and they came running. They gave me a hug. And ile kutoka yote ilishia hapo. Ilishia hapo. I felt like hata ile kutoka, yani nilifeel ni kama sija cycle. Just them hugging me. And my older boy was surprised and he told me, "You're joking." There's no way unaweza toka Nairobi na bike. That's not possible.
Umechukua hapa Voi time.
Yeah. And that was the best moment. Me being with them was the ultimate goal, and
wow.
That's what fatherhood is about.
And we celebrate you. We celebrate your
Thank
efforts. In as much as you say that you're not looking for a medal, we celebrate you.
Yeah.
you're a great inspiration, and we hope that someone out there will learn a lesson or two from your experience.
Yeah.
You started very well, a happy family.
Yeah.
Then went through a turbulence. The wife became sick and passed on, but now you have to stand in the gap.
Yeah.
For her and yourself,
yeah.
to raise these two boys.
Yeah.
How is your relationship now with your in-laws? When you go to see your boys, how do you relate?
I got the best in-laws.
Mm-hmm.
I got the best in-laws. I don't think they can get better than that.
Mm-hmm.
They are just the best people.
Wow, wonderful.
They have really taken care of my boys. They communicate with me anytime.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know my boys are in the best hands.
Wow.
They are the best in-laws.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I'm very much lucky.
Yes, you are.
I am.
How often do you talk to the boys when you are away from them?
I usually do a lot of video calls with them.
Mm-hmm.
I usually make also normal calls with them. The teachers are very, very much aware that I am that person who really want to keep talking to my boys.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I call and they have a space, huwa tunaongea na vijana wangu vizuri na video calls.
Mm-hmm.
Wakienda home, my sister-in-law is there. Tunaongea na wao through her phone, through my mom's phone, through my dad-in-law's phone.
Mm-hmm.
Always available.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me ask, at what point will they come to stay with you, if at all there will be that opportunity?
That would be the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
To be present, like to be with them the whole time. Because I would say right now I'm the absent present dad because I'm far away,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm still making efforts and I'm present.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, my wish when they get a little bit older,
Mm-hmm.
wakikuwa venye wanaweza kuwa independent.
Mm-hmm.
When mtu akiwafanyia kitu,
Mm-hmm.
wanaweza kuja waniambie. And they know what, actually let me say this, not soon, because as much as I want them to be with me,
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be around a mother figure.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
my sister-in-law, they are very close with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll do my part for now to be available for them anytime and as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
They are boys, so there are things that my mom-in-law and my sister-in-law would not talk, and they don't know much about
men.
Mm. And I want them to be responsible men and responsible dads in future.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be, as much as possible, I'll be available. So let's say when they have grown and they can go to a boarding school maybe, ndio wakitoka shule,
Mm-hmm. A boarding school.
A boarding school,
Mm-hmm.
wanaenda shule,
Mm-hmm.
wanakam,
Sasa wanakuja.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because as much as I want them, my case is quite tricky because I'm a single dad.
Mm-hmm.
So nikienda job, sina mtu kuachia.
Mm-hmm.
And their case is also a special one because their mother is not around.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say mtu akiwafanyia kitu kidogo hivi, wanaweza anza kujiuliza maswali.
Mm-hmm.
So I would rather wakae na a family member, wakae huko because they are in a family, their family's place. Alafu in future wakikuwa kubwa, they can come and we can live together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, juu nikienda job sina mtu kuachia, so nita complicate.
Okay. Please define a present dad. What makes you a present dad?
Well, a present dad...
Just tell us all the things that you do so that we can understand that definition from your perspective.
Huwa napiga simu frequently. It doesn't have to be every minute. You're going to create problems just making calls like every minute, yeah? But frequently. You can do video calls like I do. I do video calls, yeah? And now you can go physically. And when I say physically, it's you traveling.
How about their needs? Who takes care of them?
I do take care of them with the help of my in-laws. I've got very special in-laws. You see, mi hufanya mjengo. And mjengo is not a permanent employment. So sometimes I'm working, sometimes job iko poa, other times I'm struggling. And they usually understand. Huwa nawalipia school fee very well. Huwa najaribu. I do send some shopping. I wouldn't want to say it, mimi ndio na provide chakula and everything. My in-laws do all that. And paying school fee for my children is something I feel I would do that even kama their mom is still around. Wachana na chakula ama anything else. Paying school fees, kuwabaia nguo. Wajua chakula watakula na ni hivyo, lakini ukiwabaia kitu something watakuwa kiona nasema hii dada alinibaia. Yeah, remember we want also your kids to feel your presence. I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy food for your kids, but I'm saying what I do. So who wanna buy food sometime, not regularly. Sema that I'm the one who sustain them. My in-law do the most part. But I try my part. Na walipia school fee. I go and be with them physically. Nikijua nahitaji kitu kama kiatu na wabaia. Uniform na wabaia, vitabu. Yeah.
Okay. You're indeed present in their lives.
I do try.
They can pinpoint and say this is from dad.
Yeah.
All right. So what word would you have to either both single parents, let's call them that way.
Yeah.
Nowadays they changed. They are calling themselves able parents.
Okay.
What are you going to tell them, both genders?
Well, let me talk to our dad first. If you're not bedridden, if you're not in prison, if you're not sick, if you're not denied access for your children, you just make the effort to be present. More so, be physically present to your children. You see, you can have pictures in the house. You can talk to people about how you have children somewhere. You can have your screensaver being your boys or girls or your children, but that's not enough. They don't care about that. Your children don't care that you're proud about being a dad. They want you physically. They want to feel your presence. And that's what I'm trying to do long distance rides with my bicycle, like I did at 350 kilometers, to show that you can't say that any distance can make you not see your children. You can reach any distance.
Right. To the mothers.
To the mothers out there, let me talk about the separated ones. Well, tumefika place kuna hii generation yenye unajua kuna rise ya single mothers wengi sana. And actually let me tell you this before I talk about single mothers. Jumi napenda kupost watoto wangu sana na nikiwa na wao. and I feel they envy me. Hadi huwa napata inbox wananiongelesha, wananiambia venye I'm a good dad. I wish baba watoto anaweza kuwa kama wewe, sijui nini. So you can tell that most women out there, as much as they are not together with their dads, their kids' fathers, they are not denying them access to their children. They want their children to be able to access their dads, and their dads access the children. And now that brings me back to the dads. That unajua wanaume ukuwa na ego and watoto watambui hiyo. Let it be it's about you. Let it be about the child. Make the effort ya kupigia hata kama mmekosana, because you know for you to get to the kid you have to go through the mother. Juu mama ndiye akona mtoto. Wezi tu bombard hivyo useme mimi nataka watoto, kuona watoto sijui ni. Just be gentle. Punguza ego. Sisemi watu wako na ego, but I'm saying hiyo
punguza ego.
Yeah, punguza. Make the effort of calling the mom. Kama wezi mu access physically, mwambie you want to be present for your children, and that's where you start. You are disadvantaged, you know. You don't have the child with you. So you have now to know you are in disadvantage. So you have now to ukue mpole, uongee na mama ya watoto, ni mtoto wako. Uende uongee na yeye, umwambie naweza taka kufanyia mtoto hivi, naweza taka kupatana na yeye. Na hata kama una kitu, ukitembea huku nje unakuta mtoto, for example nikitembea na hii bike, unasikia tu kila mtoto anasema baba yangu atanibaia, babangu akona bike kama hii. Baba yangu aliniambia atanibaia bike. Like kids, they usually very proud about their dads. So you can start by making a call to your wife. No, not a wife in this case, yeah. To your ex-wife.
Yeah, the mother of
the mother of your children, yeah, right. Uende tu kwe present kwa watoto wako. Make the effort. Yeah, they don't watoto waangaliagi tu umewaletea nini, but ukienda tu yani ukwe tu na watoto, they appreciate your presence.
Absolutely.
You can talk to them. Yeah. Like Mimi, do you know what my ride didn't use? My ride used everything. Ilinitumia, nilichoka, nilisweat, but kuna kitu moja haikutumia. Haikutumia pesa. Actually nilifika hivyo na bike yangu. Na watoto, they embraced me, they were happy. Hawakuniuliza nimewaletea nini, but my presence. Yeah. And that's what many dads forget, that you don't have to usiendo ati lazima uende ukiwa umebebanisha. Hiyo itakaa mtu.
But you're there to remind you with your bicycle.
Yeah.
How long will you do this in the future?
As much as it takes. I would say I will do it until all dads are present. Nitaacha kufanya kama dads wote watakuwa present to their children. Because I would love a generation whereby tunalea watoto wenye wanakuwa present in dads in future.
Alright.
And para generation ambayo once dad ako absent kwa life ya mtoto, kuna vitu mzazi wa mama haezi ambia mtoto. Like especially kijana.
Mtoto wa kiume.
Yeah, yeah. Because most of the time unapata juu ya failed families, now the mothers wako busy sana, hawako na time ya kugaida watoto. And word ya a dad, it usually sticks kwa mind ya mtoto. Dad aliniambia. Yeah. Like a mom anaweza ambia mtoto, please don't do that. Please, unaona ako gentle. Na kuna venye watoto wazazi ladies, as in mothers, wanapenda watoto sana, they are very gentle to the children. And that's why you get kids, they don't feel whatever, kama wanakanywa kitu, like it's a serious thing.
Baba yao.
Yeah, lakini baba yao anaambia don't do this, don't do this.
And they hear.
And they hear. Yeah. They are straight to the don't. Yeah. So and wanasikiza.
2 things before we conclude.
Yeah.
Are you planning to remarry?
Well, that has not crossed my mind yet. Because my wife is still much presence in my life. I feel it. Nikiona tu watoto. Well, I'm not going to remarry anytime soon. Okay. Maybe in future. I wouldn't say I will never, but it has not yet crossed my mind as for now.
Now, are you willing to give out your number for people to contact you to do what you do, moldings and creatives? Or how can they reach you? Let me just ask, how can people reach you so that you can cooperate in terms of work, you know, moldings, creatives and all that, because you have shown us what you usually do, so that you can bring up your boys and be present as you wish to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm in Facebook by the name Jackson Njuguna. Then hapo chini nimeandika Baba Boys.
Okay.
And my profile picture ni mimi na boys, my 2 boys.
You will have it below this video.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I'm also in TikTok by the name A Father's Heart in 2 Wheels. Okay, you can contact me with those platforms so we can partner so that I can get an Insta360 camera or a camera that I will be recording those rides as I raise the awareness on dads being present in their kids' lives.
And reach more people.
And reach more people, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We wish you the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackson.
Yeah.
We celebrate you, we appreciate you, and thank you so much for taking some time off your busy cycling schedule and to share your story with us. This is a family channel. I know they have learned a lesson or 2, or even more. And we wish that dads will take that step to be more present. And ladies who are out there, don't lock out the dads if they want to be present.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jackson.
You're welcome.
And we wish you the very best.
Thank you.
Next ride, I want to be part of it.
That's fine. Okay.
Tuko family, that's the story of Jackson Njuguna, a father's heart on 2 wheels. That is what he describes himself as. He wants to raise awareness on dads and fathers being present in their children's lives. What lesson have you taken from this conversation? My name is Kingori Wangeshi. This has been Tuko Talks. Let's do this again next time. Kwaheri.